Hey everybody, Youngman Brown here. I just wanted to let you know that today's episode contains adult content. A super inspiring episode, however, it does have some bad language as well as cover some very adult topics. So that being said, if you have kids listening, you definitely want to turn them away for this episode. Other than that, enjoy. Your Creative Push, episode 232.
Throw caution to the wind. Let your fear have its voice, and then tell it to step aside because you've got work to do.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Alatar. Alatar is a genderfluid digital artist who creates character-driven adult illustrations. Their work includes both fan art and original content, and attempts to explore a wide range of body types, ethnicities, gender identities, and sexualities. They are also the host of the podcast Blue Magic, where they interview other creatives in the erotic field. Alatar, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, very happy to meet you kind of in person. We've been talking a lot, and it's really a pleasure to have you on the show.
Yeah, for real.
So the way we start the podcast, as you know, is kind of giving a brief bio, kind of how you got to the point you are today creatively.
Yeah, the origin story, sure.
Yeah.
So, a long time ago in a galaxy far away, I started out, like a lot of kids do, picking up a pencil and doodling. As long as I can remember, I've been drawing. When I was little, I had like a fascination with comic books. I remember once my mom came home with a Sonic the Hedgehog comic. There was a section in the back that had fan art that had been drawn and sent in to the editors. And I was like, wait, this is a thing I can do?
Wait.
Yeah, I was like, oh man. So I started drawing like crazy, copying the exact things that were drawn in there and copying out of the comics and whatever else. And then my babysitter was an artist as well, and he would draw. I remember one time I had him draw a cyborg tiger for me, I think, and I thought it was just the coolest thing in the world. And it was like this superpower. He could bring in this reality that didn't exist and make it real, and I thought that was so powerful. And so I just took off like a bat out of hell with it. So then fast forward into kind of my early teens, and I'm in that pubescent stage where sexuality suddenly becomes interesting, and I started kind of messing around with that artistically. I can remember there was a how to draw book that had a section by the artist Alrio, and it was basically like, here's how you draw sexy girls. And in retrospect, that is a sort of sexist and ridiculous idea, because it was like, well, it was like, oh, you want to draw comic books? Well, all the girls better be hot. And I'm like,
right.
All right, well. But at the time, it was like, whoa, wait, that's a thing I can do? I can draw things that are arousing? This is neat. And so I started playing around with it, but I never took it seriously, and I went through a phase of religious guilt where, it was a bad thing, and I fought it in myself, and interestingly enough, during that time, I also had pretty bad art block and couldn't really get myself to draw much at all. So we all come to a point, actually pretty recently, a few months ago, where I had a major meltdown, like just this total depressive fallout. And I'm sitting on my bed next to my spouse, and we're playing Final Fantasy VII just to give me something to think about,
Best game ever.
Best game ever. Yeah. Oh my god, don't even get me started on FF7. I will absorb this entire podcast to talk about FF7.
All right, we'll do it after then.
yeah, absolutely. But long story short, we're playing the game, and my spouse and I are in an open relationship, so polyamory is very important to us. And we're talking about Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith and the relationship they have together and how wonderful it is, and how, there's definitely attraction going all three ways, right? And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to paint them. So I painted them in this threesome, and I was trying really hard to show the emotions that they had for each other. And, it was kind of in this alternate universe where, spoiler, if you haven't played FF7, dies. And it was kind of in this alternate universe where what if she lived, and what if they had settled down for this life together and whatever. And I wanted to paint something really hot between the three of them. And something clicked. And I was like, this is what I've wanted to draw all this time. And I haven't let myself. And it's about time I do. And so I bailed on the old identity I had set up almost completely. It's kind of like a ghost blog now. created a new name, set up a new Tumblr and a new Twitter and a new logo and everything. And just, that day, Alatar the Blue Wizard was born.
Nice.
And since then, I've been creating erotic art left and right. I've made a bunch of friends in the community. It's like things just fell into place, and it was like, this is what I'm here to do,
Well, congratulations on your reformat, like reformatting the hard drive and setting up the new identity or whatever. And do you think that like consciously you were aware of the fact that you wanted to draw this type of thing all your life, or was it something you kind of unconsciously had in your mind, and then it was like this moment that brought it out?
I think it's a bit of both. In my previous identity, I did have a side blog where I would explore erotic stuff, but it was something I didn't take seriously. It was just, I got to get it out of my system so I can get back to the real work. I had this comic project I want to do, and I was doing freelance graphic design and all this stuff, and I was like, that's real because it's safe for work. My smut is just what I do to vent. I didn't take it seriously, and I didn't give it the love it deserved. And as such, no one freaking noticed any of my work. Like, I had a small handful of friends that really loved it, and that was about it. And I'm not knocking any of that, but, that low point in my life, that depressive phase, made me really stop and say, what do I really care about? What is it I really want to do? That I'm just not admitting to myself that I wanted to do. And I took a long, hard look at it, pun intended. And I said, you know what? I really love erotica. I really love things that are arousing and that explore that side of human emotion. And it's about time I took that seriously. So I would say that it was always there, but it wasn't until I was at my lowest moment and had to ask myself what really mattered to me that I fully acknowledged it and gave myself over to it.
You use the word real work. Now, what would you define your real work as? The stuff that you do at your job, or the stuff that you're doing on the side?
Well, back then it would have been my stuff that I did at my job. It would have been, or even back then, my day job, not really. It was what I was trying to do to make a living. My goal back then was I had a web comic that I was trying to get off the ground, and I was hoping to make my living off of that eventually. And so everything else was subservient to that. So my real work, but still was just like, it's what's safe for work. It's what's most palatable. It's what's most accessible to all audiences, and not, again, that there's anything wrong with that. It's just, some part of me knew that I was fooling myself into thinking that's what I really wanted to do. And I wasn't taking the full leap and saying, not only do I want to do comics and art for a living instead of something safe like a day job, but I want to do smutty comics and art for a living because that's what I'm obsessed with,
Right. And I think probably for a lot of people listening, they have something in their mind, if they're not quite happy with the work that they're doing, whatever it may be, but something that they maybe like started to define themselves as, and they've gone down this path of, I am this type of artist, I am this type of musician, I am this type of whatever. Would you have any advice for them when in the back of their minds they know that they want to do something different? Perhaps it might not be something that, their parents or their grandparents would, get red in the face by seeing, but something that maybe that their fan base is not used to, when they think that by changing what they want to create, or they've always known that they wanted to create or pivot or whatever, that they're just afraid to make that change. Would you have any advice for them to maybe not have to get to as low of a point as you got to?
Yeah. What I would say to that person is that in video game terms, it's never too late to re-roll your specs. It is never too late to change classes. If you have this thing that your heart is just aching to do, and I mean aching, like it's constantly in the back of your head, you're constantly thinking about it, it's what you want to do. If there's a way for you to do it, even if it's just in a small way, if there's a way for you to give it its time and give it its time in the sun, then do it and see what happens. Even if it's just that little bit, like I said, I had a side blog on my other identity. I played with it a little bit, and all that did was make the fire grow hotter. So I would say do it and pay very close attention to what happens. See what happens when you feed it just that little bit. See what happens inside of you. Does it make you suddenly just come alive in this ferocious burst of flame? And if so, maybe you're onto something, and maybe that needs your time and attention.
Yeah, definitely onto something if it creates that kind of a reaction in you. And yeah, I think that's, you hit on the key point there, is to trust your emotions, to really be in touch with like how it makes you feel when you're doing something. If you're creating something and you're like, it feels like a job and you can't wait for it to be over, like why are you spending your free time doing that?
Yeah.
And if it gives you that joy, or you wish you could be doing something else, do that and like really pay attention to those emotions and try to get to those emotions if they're positive.
Yeah.
So what was it like after you were able to kind of have that burst, that flame burst, like you're talking about with the Cloud Tifa Aerith kind of threesome? What was it like after that? Were you like, I want more of this? Or was it like, wow, that's like exactly what I had in my mind all this time?
It was this moment where I realized this is what I'm here to do. I realized this is what I've been wanting to do for years. It made me stop and look back on my past, and I started connecting the dots. I started remembering that even before puberty, I was obsessed with sexuality. Even though I didn't even know what it was. It was so intriguing to me. It kind of called to me, a voice from the woods, as it were. I realized it's like, this has been here this whole time. This is something I really want to do. It felt amazing to finally really give myself to it, like give it 100%. I went balls to the wall on this picture. I spent weeks on it, before it was finished. And I'm immensely proud of it. I mean, obviously, I've gotten better since I did that, and there's things I would change, but I'm proud that I made that decision, and it just, something clicked then. And it was suddenly like there was some small element of the resistance that was gone, or was now so weak that I could just plow through it. I guess I kind of went Super Saiyan. Like, I had a really low emotional moment, and I got really determined, and I suddenly found myself with a great deal of power in my hands that I didn't realize I had before.
And some of that power comes from, we were talking about this a little bit before we jumped on the interview, but just like the idea of creating a new identity. So can you talk about that and the kind of like superpower that gives you? Yeah,
absolutely. So if it isn't obvious already, I'm a raging nerd, and I'm really obsessed with Doctor Who. And in Doctor Who, for those of you who don't know, one of the things is the main character, the Doctor, is an alien who, when he dies, instead of dying, his body rebuilds itself, and he's sort of reborn as a new person. And when that happens, it comes with a whole new slew of good and bad things. His personality changes, some of his memories are affected, so on and so forth. So he's basically a whole new person, and it's time to rock and roll. And when I did this, when I chose a new identity and picked and I was very careful about the name I picked. I picked something that had personal meaning to me and reflected what I wanted to do. And when I did that and I sort of stepped into that identity, it really did feel like becoming a new person. And suddenly all that baggage from my last life, gone. Because Alatar didn't have that life. That was somebody else. And I've been reborn now, and I can just move forward without that baggage. And it's an amazing feeling because I no longer have to hold myself to the narrative that I was living my life to up until that point. I'm telling a whole new story now.
Yeah, you're the one that gets to choose the narrative that you go down, kind of like we were talking about before. So, and for me, creating Youngman Brown, that was like a little bit of a different reason for doing it, but still it gave me that permission to be able to say whatever I wanted, to do whatever I wanted, and to kind of have like the permission to really, I've talked about this before too, but like to really express myself in the most honest way, and then like kind of realize what I thought about the world, and then like have my other identity, my real identity, Mike Young, kind of step into that. Yeah. As well, if that makes sense. It gives you like permission to step outside of yourself for a little bit, to really like give yourself like an evaluation from the outside.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, a lot of what affects us in life is narrative that's been applied to us from outside. Things we've been through, expectations that were heaped on us, bullying we've gone through, promises we've made that maybe we didn't make in the right state of mind, beliefs we've held that are no longer ours. So many things form this kind of narrative that turn us into one kind of character, and all it takes is stepping into another character to suddenly realize, man, I'm not bound by any of that at all. And it's a very old practice. I mean, the whole practice of shamanism is based on this notion of assuming another identity, right? They would need the wisdom of a certain animal or a certain god, so the shaman would go on an internal spiritual journey to become that god or that animal or whatever it is that they needed guidance from, and then go from there. And I think it's kind of the same thing. You pick up this new identity to embrace another side of yourself and to become the thing that you need to become. And I've heard that kind of advice from all kinds of people. Neil Gaiman once talked about receiving advice he had to write a thing, and he was like, someone told him, I don't remember who, either that or he told someone, but in either case, the advice was pretend you're someone who could do it. And it's the same thing. It's assuming another identity, becoming another person, and then you realize after a time that the other person you've become is just another part of yourself, and perhaps a part of yourself that just hadn't had a chance to be expressed before.
Yeah, you very eloquently put, and like Rogan talks about too, it's like being able to like step outside of yourself and see yourself as the hero of your own movie, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And what would the hero do in the next scene, and just do that thing, like that. It's that simple. But sometimes we get so caught up in our own stories that we, like you said, that we've been telling ourselves, this identity that we've kind of been wrapped up in, that's not necessarily from ourselves. It's from the society that we live in, like our upbringing, all of the people that we surround ourselves with. That's kind of what defines us, like what the expectations from other people for ourselves is. So it's just stepping outside of yourself, looking at yourself, giving yourself an honest evaluation of what would the hero of this guy's movie or this girl's movie or this whoever's movie do, and then just do that thing. It's that simple.
It is. But it's funny, simple doesn't mean easy.
Exactly, yeah.
We don't want to belittle it. Like, it is extremely difficult. Like I said, for me to do it, I had to be in a very low point in my life. I had to be at a point where I was like, to quote Shawshank Redemption, get busy living or get busy dying. That's where I was. Like, I was not in a good headspace, but it was like, I've got two choices. I can either give up, whether that means dying or whether that means resigning myself to this life that is not making me happy, or I can go for broke. And I chose go for broke,
Right.
But I don't think it takes hitting that low moment. I think it takes just being honest with yourself, taking a quiet moment, really take a look and try to step outside yourself, assume another identity for a minute and take that look. I think what it really takes is bravery. Having your back against the wall makes everyone brave, right? I mean, that's, a tiger is most dangerous when it's cornered. When you're at your lowest, your life kind of forces you to be brave. But I think anybody can stop long enough to kind of mentally check themselves and make themselves take that brave action at any time.
Now, what about somebody that's at that low point or their back's against the wall and they don't know what direction to go to? They don't know kind of what creative style is theirs or even what they want to do creatively. All they know is what's not working.
If all you know is what's not working, then you know what you shouldn't be doing. And that's a step in the right direction. Everything you do should be, envision the ideal you or the place you want to be as a distant mountain. Whatever you do at this point, just get closer to the mountain. Whatever that looks like. Before this breakdown, about a year ago, I was working at a different job that was kind of crushing my soul. And I didn't have a lot of time to explore myself artistically. Between transit time and having to stay late at work a lot, I was basically just working and sleeping. And then I got an opportunity to come to another job that I had a little bit more time and I would be closer to home, so my transit time would be less, right? So I'd have just that little bit more time to put into what mattered to me. So I took that step. Was the new job what I wanted to do? Hell no. It's a garbage job. But it was one step closer to the mountain. So if your back's against the wall and you don't even know where you want to go, but you know that where you're at isn't where you want to be, then the first step to getting closer to that mountain is get the hell out of where you are now. Whatever that looks like. Now obviously don't do anything severely dangerous or severely radical that could hurt you or those around you. But make some kind of move. Even I'm talking about just like right this moment, right this breath. If you right now are in that crisis moment, take a breath, go to a different space. Take a drive, go to a park. Go somewhere you've never been before, to where you're in a completely new environment and your brain has to process that new environment and take it in a new way. That's going to trick you into seeing things from another angle. My therapist used to tell me to do that all the time. She was like, tomorrow I want you to drive to work along a different route, because then you're going to be forced to think in a new way. Even if it's something that small, take that step to go outside of where you are right now and try to look inward. And the rest will flow from there.
Just keep moving.
Yeah.
Even if it's not in the right direction at the moment, at least you're moving somewhere so you can see other things that don't work.
Yeah, and anywhere is better than where you are. If you know where you are doesn't work, then go somewhere else. If that somewhere else doesn't work, great, pick yourself up and go again. It's like, I come back to video games a lot, but this is kind of how I frame the way I look at life. If you're playing a really hard game, you kind of have to go to the parts of the game where you die or you get your ass kicked to figure out how to beat it. Nobody beats Castlevania 1 on the first try. Like, fuck that. You get your ass kicked, you die, you get mad, you rage quit, and then you come back and you start the game over again. And it's kind of like that, you know? You go into one situation, it doesn't work. Okay, great. You've learned now that that doesn't work. That's one more tool in your arsenal for the next try, you know?
I'll go to video games too while we're at it, like Final Fantasy VII as well. There's 2 months I was stuck on this one boss that was like disc 4, I think. Was it a 5-disc game?
It was a 3-disc game.
3-disc game? Okay, so it was disc 3. I was stuck on that for like 2 months, but anyway, I kept trying. Then when you get finished it, after trying for 2 months to beat this one boss and you actually complete that, it's the best feeling in the world.
It's super triumphant. You know, again, that's what's valuable about those challenges, you know. So that's one thing you can try to console yourself with is this challenging area of your life you're in. You know, when you finally do get past it, you're going to feel like one badass motherfucker.
Absolutely. Well, and talking about religious guilt a little bit, because you brought that up, is that something you still deal with, or is that something you're kind of over now?
There is a small part of me that will forever carry those mentalities and is forever afraid that I have damned myself. But I have made peace with it. It has a place that it lives, and I let it talk when it's got to talk, and I thank it for its input, and I tell it to please now shut up. You know, that's basically how I deal with it. Like, and at this point, I've gotten so used to it being there that it no longer significantly affects me. Once in a while, it'll blindside me. I won't play about that. Every now and then, I will suddenly, my world will turn upside down and be like, oh my god, I am a sinner. I am going to hell. I have corrupted my soul, and I am destroying myself and those around me, and I am a horrible person, and I need to go find Jesus. And not that I'm knocking anyone of the Christian faith, by the way. There's a lot of beautiful stuff in there, and Jesus is an incredible teacher and possibly the savior of all mankind. So I'm not knocking that, but the particular flavors I was exposed to caused me a lot of guilt and a lot of self-hate. And I just had to make peace with the fact that there's a small part of me that will always carry that, and just trying to think of a good, I don't know, I think of like my mind as a mansion, and it has its own room, and I let it live there, you know, even though it doesn't pay rent. And and I indulge it when it goes on its rants, and then I ask it to please go back to your room now, thank you, and shut the door on your way in.
Well, that's a really powerful tool, I think, and for anybody that has resistances, whether it's religious guilt or any of the many resistances that we've brought up on this show, to just let that voice speak. I think it's really important to do that, like realizing that it's never going to completely go away. I don't think anybody that I've interviewed has ever had that experience where they're like, yep, I'm good now. Like, no. I got over it. Yeah, like it just gets easier. And I think to give it, like you said, to give it its own room and maybe like feed it every once in a while, but to kind of realize that it's there and living with you forever, just kind of trying to keep it in the basement locked away.
Absolutely. I mean, because it's a part of you, you know, and it's trying to help you. It honest to God is. You know, those parts of us that rant and rave at us, that scream at us, that whatever, they're trying their best to help. They're just misinformed. And the best thing you can do is make peace with them, let them say their bit. If you can, try to bring them around to your side. If you can't, you thank them for their input and say, well, I'm deciding to go another way, but thank you for showing up and for sharing your concerns with me.
Are there any other resistances that you deal with?
Oh, Jesus, yeah. Imposter syndrome is a major one. I am pretty convinced that I'm just faking it, and one day someone is going to figure it out. I come back to Neil Gaiman a lot. He's one of my heroes, and he talks about he was so sure that there would one day a man with a clipboard is going to come to his house. He doesn't know why he has a clipboard, but he always has a clipboard. And he was going to come to his house and say, well, you've been found out. And it's time to stop making things up for money and time to get a real adult job. And he would come along quietly with the man with the clipboard. And I don't necessarily visualize a man with a clipboard, but I do envision like one day everyone suddenly realizing that I'm a fraud, and then be like, aha!
Some type of news article.
Yeah. Freaking BuzzFeed comes out. Alatar,
that's what I think. Yeah.
Alatar, totally fake. You know, and so that's a big one. Perfectionism is another. I mean, ever since I was little, I have always wanted to get things right on the first shot. And in art, that just doesn't fucking happen. Ever. In the history of art, ever. That has never happened. Like, no. Bullshit. If anyone claims to have gotten it right on the first shot, they're lying, or they've forgotten all the times they screwed up. It just doesn't happen. And, you know, I tend to be my own worst critic and to hyperanalyze every picture I do, and, you know, oh Lord, her eye is 1 millimeter to the left too much. I mean, seriously, it gets that pedantic. And that can really slow me down. And I have to, I to the point where every now and then I'll have a panic attack where I think, oh my God, I've been spending 5 hours on this and it's garbage, and that means I'm a failure as an artist and it turns, from a molehill into a mountain. And I have to stop and breathe and, let it have its voice and let it talk and let it tell me how much of a screw up I am and then quietly tell it it's wrong, and sometimes it's as easy as taking a breath and moving on. Other times it's Al has to sit down next to their wife and breathe and tell her what's going on and talk about it. It depends.
Right. Sometimes it's time to take a break, and sometimes you do need that support too, for your partner or your friend or whoever it is that kind of gives you that moral support to just be like, no, you're being a little bit crazy. It's okay. Just relax.
It's dangerous to go alone.
Yeah, it is. So then with your job as well, how do you balance the time between doing work for work and then doing work for yourself, especially as you when you get so excited about this new thing that's going on, this thing that you want to, you can't wait to kind of light that fire again?
It's a major point of contention for sure. There are days where I spend my whole day at work listening to this podcast, just trying to keep myself pumped up enough that when I get home, I'll actually have the energy to draw. Literally, that has been my day sometimes. But what I've found that works best for me is I see my art as my calling, capital C. It's what I'm here to do. It's my mission in life. And that means I need to take it seriously. And that means it comes first. So I get up in the morning, and I am not a morning person, and it takes me a half hour just to get out of bed. But damn it, I get out eventually. And I sit down with my iPad, and I draw. So that way, every day, I claim that space, and I say, this is me, this is my identity, this is who I am, this is what I'm here to do, and life will not take it from me. So even if it's only 5 minutes in the morning before I get ready for work, I've taken that 5 minutes and I've staked my claim as an artist to the world, and that's been the biggest thing. And just in general, like making it come first in life, like I said, my partner and I have an open relationship, but I don't have any other partners right now because I don't have the time. Right now I'm trying like hell to get my career to take off, and I'm trying to give myself to my art. So right now I don't have any other partners. Sometimes it's, social events that I'm not really that into. So, I'm just going to stay home and draw. You guys have fun. Now, obviously, I don't do that all the time, because if I did that, I would be a crazy person. And I would have, my input-output ratio would be completely out of whack, and I would be burned out and a grump and just generally not good to be around. So I do go out and I do, hang out with people, but it's that idea of this comes first. If I've already done my drawing for the day, or if I'm, pretty caught up on my projects and feeling pretty good about it, all right. Let's go out and party. Let's go play some games, whatever. But what matters to me has to come first.
Right. And I'd argue and say that you do have another partner, and it is your calling with a capital C, to treat it as such, too.
Yeah.
Because I think that if you do treat it as this thing, maybe not like a partner so much as like a child, or at least when it starts out, it's like a baby that you need to take care of, and you need to give it food and nourishment and time and care and love, and so that it can grow into this thing that is really just another version of you.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
maybe I'm getting too weird, but
no, I'm with you. I'm a big believer in. I practice magic and chaos magic, and I could go on a huge rant about turning a sigil into a servitor, but the basic notion is it's this little thing, this little piece of you that you make grow and make grow and make grow until it takes on a life of its own. And I think an artistic practice is kind of the same thing. It's a little piece of you that you give more and more to until it starts taking on a life of its own, and then you're not there to create it so much as support it.
Absolutely, it is magic. You do listen to the podcast.
Oh yeah.
Your podcast, Blue Magic. Talk about that then.
Yeah.
Where did that kind of inception come from, and why did you start it?
Yeah. So the simple answer to that is I was listening to Your Creative Push, and I was like, man, I wish there was a version of this for erotic artists. And I was like,
and the way this podcast started was because I was listening to another podcast, and I was like, I wish there was this for creative people.
Yeah, exactly. So that's great. That's the simple version.
I love that.
But the more deep version is that I wanted to I wanted to take erotic art seriously. And by that I mean and I talk about this on Blue Magic a lot, that there's kind of a flippant attitude towards porn in the world, where it's just porn, don't think about it. Don't take it seriously, or vice versa. When someone does take it seriously and criticize it, people defend by saying, "Oh, you're getting too serious about this. It's just porn. Relax." And I wanted to create a space where we could talk about it openly and talk about it seriously, because I believe it's another form of art, and art is a form of magic. Art, we take things that don't exist and bring them into reality. We can shape the very culture and the world around us by what we create. I think it was Liz Gilbert who said that, laws don't create culture, art does. And I think it's true. And when I realized that, I said, okay, then I'm going to take this magic seriously, and I'm going to start talking to other people who are making this magic, and we're going to talk about what it is we're actually trying to do, and maybe try to feed on the magic of other wizards, as it were. The title came from actually Dungeons and Dragons. There's a supplemental book in D&D. I used to play it back when I was a kid. That's a blue magic book, and it's all sex magic.
Makes sense.
That's where that came from. But yeah, it was just, I wanted to explore that space with other artists and try to get a conversation going that I felt like needs to happen.
Yeah, and I've listened to it, and you're right. I think that it's something that's needed. Bravo to you. You're like a wonderful host right from the jump. I'm jealous of how well spoken you are, and how honest you are as well. I think that's like a really, really hard thing to do. In your episode 0, you were just like super honest, and I think that's the way to like connect with people, is to share that honesty, and something that I definitely promote, artists and any creative people that are listening to this. Like, when you share your work, share the story about the work, share like the trials and tribulations, share what was hard about it, share what's hard about with your life. Cause I think that people don't talk about that enough. So bravo to you for just being able to like, just put it out there, like just to step into the world naked almost.
I appreciate it. I mean, magic comes from a place of vulnerability. You can't fool God, existence, the universe, whatever you want to call it. You can't fool it. It'll call bullshit on you the moment you try to front. So don't front. Don't even waste your time with it. And I mean, we all do. It's called having an ego. It's part of the game, unfortunately. But you have to try your best to shut that down and just step out and be vulnerable about it. And ever since I made that decision to do that, I've seen powerful results come of it. So I agree. Don't just post the work and try to be the shiny, pristine version of you. Tell us the story. Show us your work in progress. Show us the dirty, ugly sketches that led up to that final piece. Bring people into the process. People love that. I know what frickin' I do. My favorite things to buy are like, sketchbooks and stuff that show me the process an artist goes through, or behind the scenes stuff of concept art. I eat that up, and I know a lot of people do. And that's just one small fragment of that openness and vulnerability that comes with being a creative. And I think the more of that you can open up to, the better.
I couldn't agree more. We were talking about this a little bit before the show, about some of the opportunities that have come because of the show, like some of the people that you're able to talk to because of this thing that you just created, Blue Magic. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, I've gotten to meet other artists that I've been looking up to for a long time. Diesel Brain, Calm, who is my all-time favorite erotic artist in the world. Pretty soon I'm going to be interviewing Erotibot. I've just had a lot of really great opportunities to meet and get to know these artists who, to me were kind of these distant legends, and now they're people, and I talk to them on Discord on a regular basis and check in and see their works in progress and say, hey, what's up? They're people now. The other thing it did for me is that, back to the imposter syndrome thing, I sort of felt like an outsider trying to get in to the erotic art community. And in creating this podcast and meeting those people, I suddenly found myself in it, without any clear moment of crossing a threshold. I was just suddenly, I'm part of it, and I'm meeting new people all the time who are part of it, and I'm interacting with them, and they're retweeting my work, and I'm retweeting their work, and we're critiquing each other, and so on and so forth. Like, one minute I wasn't, and the next minute I was, and me creating this podcast was a part of that, So yeah, I mean, but it's been really cool, getting to kind of see into these other people's processes and learn what they care about and what they want to change in the erotic world, and learning cool little facts about them, like the fact that Diesel Brain, he figured out that he was bisexual through his work. Zoe, she met her boyfriend through her work. these cool little life stories, and I feel like I'm actually getting to know them as people, and that's been a tremendous and awesome opportunity.
Yeah, and I definitely recommend for anybody listening, if you have your own kind of niche that there's not a podcast for, or you just want to create your own, like, it's so easy to like start. All you have to do is basically have a microphone and just like a will.
Mm-hmm.
And by just creating a name for a title for a podcast and saying that you have created this podcast, and you can just, that's your ticket to reach out to people that you want to talk to. And like, it's really that simple. So start a podcast. It's really easy.
Yeah. I mean, it's scary, but it's easy and it's fun. I mean,
it's terrifying.
Yeah. It is mortifying, especially the first time you reach out and be like, "Hey, I have this podcast I just started. Do you want to maybe be on it?" And the first time that happens, it's terrifying. But once you get past it, or once the first guy goes, "Yeah, sure, I'll be on," you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is great," and then it's nothing but fun from there.
Yeah. If anybody wants help creating a podcast, reach out to me, youngman@yourcreativepush.com. I'm happy to help.
All the quality that is in my podcast is thanks to the prep this man gave me. So yes, reach out to Youngman, get some advice. He will give you stellar stuff to start with.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, thanks. As you know, it is time for the final push.
Oh boy.
And this is where I ask you to reach to the microphone, grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already really inspired today, and just give them your best advice and really push them to pursue their creative passion.
All right. Talking to you now. You came to this world for a reason, and you know what it is. Deep down, you know. And there's clues all around you. You've seen them your whole life. Little clues, little callings that have just caught your attention. Maybe you've already been paying attention to it. Maybe it's only just now becoming apparent. But take a moment and really open your eyes to it. Look at it closely and pull it into yourself. Invite it into you. And then live from it. Understand that's what you're here to do, and we are waiting for you to do it. We need you to do it. It may not seem important. It may seem insignificant. It may seem crass. It may seem something that people will never accept. I promise you, someone out there is going to get it. I promise you, even if it's just one person that you don't even realize you met or you don't even realize you affected, it's the butterfly effect, man. You're going to change their life. Do it. Just do it. You will be rewarded for it. If nothing else, because you will have the thrill of finally lining up with that calling of yours and taking action on it. So throw caution to the wind. Let your fear have its voice, and then tell it to step aside because you've got work to do.
Chills. Maybe the best final push we've ever had.
Don't say that.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my God.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Alatar, for coming on the show and for giving us that big push today.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to help inspire other people.
Oh, absolutely. And you can find Alatar on Tumblr, Twitter, and Instagram as Blue Wizard Art. Or you can check out their gallery on Newgrounds, which is probably the best place to find your work, would you say?
I would say so, yeah. It's the cleanest presented and most easily browsed place that my artwork is featured.
Okay, cool. And that's at bluewizardart.newgrounds.com. And, of course, you can find out more about Blue Magic on iTunes or bluemagic.libsyn.com. We'll have all of those links, though, linked up at yourcreativepush.com/Alatar, Alatar. Alatar, thanks again.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Super inspiring episode with Alatar. I was so happy with that conversation. And just remember to feed those ideas and to see how they make you feel when you do feed them. Does it make the fire grow hotter, or does it lose some of the magic? And either result, honestly, is nothing to be scared of. Either you can kind of check it off of your list and know that you've tried it, and that it wasn't for you, or you can come alive in a, as Alatar said, ferocious burst of flame. And if you can get those moments where you realize that this is what I'm here to do, if you can say that sentence to yourself, wow. If you can get that emotion just once in life, then you've won, and you've checked into that magic, and you have accomplished something that not everybody can. It's that emotion that humans in general should be striving to find in life. And it's that emotion that you should try to replicate again and again and again and again, as often as you can for as long as you can. And once you find it, it's that emotion, the only thing that you should be worrying about, the only thing that you should be striving to achieve, because finding that is a very special thing, and you should not give the slightest shit about what other people are going to think about it, whether or not it's something that your parents will approve of, or your friends, or your neighbors, or strangers on the internet. You should not worry if you can make money from it, or if your time could be more smartly spent doing something else. No. If you find something that makes you say this sentence, "This is what I'm here to do," then that is all that matters. And when you find that calling, if you're lucky enough to find that thing that drives you, that thing that you're here to do, treat that calling with a capital C. Like Alatar, make it the first thing that you get to in the morning so that you can claim that day as a day that you pushed towards your creative goals and you got one step closer to that mountain. So again, my thanks to Alatar. Definitely head to the show notes page, yourcreativepush.com/Alatar, Alatar, to find all the links to their stuff. However, definitely know that this is not safe for work, most of those links. And if it's not something that you're interested in seeing, then maybe just check out the show notes page, which has safe stuff for you to look at. On Thursday's episode, we have Al Marconi. Al is a super talented Spanish guitarist that comes on the show to talk about his creative journey and his creative process. Definitely one of those episodes that you don't want to miss, regardless of what your creative passion is. He's a really fun guy and a very inspirational talk. You can find him at almarconi.com. That's ALMARCONI.com, or you can find him on YouTube. And we'll have his links as well at today's show notes page, yourcreativepush.com/232. But that's all I've got for you today, so hopefully you are inspired to go and get your work done. So go and get it done, and we will be here for you on Thursday if you need the push again. I love you all. Get some amazing work done, and we will see you next time. Bye. Never miss a push. Head to yourcreativepush.com/subscribe to find the easiest way for you to subscribe to the podcast.